Chapter 6. Creating Plugins, VST and Standalone Applications. VST plugins. One of the most attractive features of SynthMaker is its ability to export fully independent VST plugins. VST is an industry standard format created by Steinberg. A VST plugin is a virtual digital effect processor or instrument that can be used in VST-compatible applications for creating music. The mechanism for creating a plugin in SynthMaker is very simple. All you need is a module with an acceptable combination of MIDI and/or mono inputs and outputs. The module front panel, if you provide one, will provide the user interface for your plugin. Inside your module you need to provide the required inputs and outputs, then everything that goes in between is up to you. Inputs and outputs. For a VST instrument your module will need one MIDI input and two mono outputs. This allows the instrument to send stereo audio data based on MIDI signals sent from a host. VST effects can vary. You can create a MIDI effect which takes one MIDI input and one MIDI output. For a standard audio effect you need two mono inputs and two mono outputs. Of course you can have any number of inputs and outputs, but you'll need a host that can handle the data you're requesting from or sending to it. Note that the VST button, and therefore the option to create a plugin from a module, will not appear unless the combination of inputs and outputs is acceptable. You can use the VST or VST-I modules in the toolbox if you want a template module to use as a start point for your plugin. Create VST/VST-I dialog. To create a VST plugin, simply click the VST button on the action panel of your plugin module or select the module and choose Create VST/VST-I from the schematic menu. When you click the VST button you'll be presented with the Create VST/VST-I dialog. This allows you to specify the various characteristics of your plugin. Plugin name. The plugin name is the name of the DLL that will be generated and the name that will be used when the plugin is listed in your host. By default, the software will use the module label. If there is no label, the dialog will show the last name that you used. This plugin is an. The plugin type will be set automatically based on the combination of inputs and outputs on your module. Basically, if you have one MIDI input and two mono outputs, then instrument will be selected, otherwise effect will be selected. Vendor and version. The vendor name is your name or your company name, if you want to specify one. You can also set a version number. This must be an integer value. Your plugin will be created here. Plugins are created in a particular folder, and you have the option to change this. Plugin ID. You can set the 4-character unique ID for your plugin. This is part of the VST standard. You should try to use an ID that is not used by any other. However, it is widely recognized that with the number of VST plugins in circulation, it's almost impossible for the unique ID system to work. In the majority of hosts, it is not necessary to have a unique ID. Include support for SSE and SSE2. The PC on which you generate your plugin may support SSE2 or it may just support SSE. When you export a plugin, the software saves code that is optimized for the SSE capabilities of your own PC. If you then give the plugin to someone whose PC has different SSE capabilities from you, the software needs to make adjustments on loading so that the plugin will work. These adjustments can slow down the loading process. To avoid this, you can choose to include support for all SSE setups at export time. This way there is no reduction in loading speed when plugins are used on PCs with different SSE capabilities. Click Create and within a few seconds your plugin DLL will be created in the target location that you specified. Storing VST export preferences. In order to preserve the settings you want to use in the Create VST/VST-I dialog, you can add a VST plugin info component to your module. This has inputs for all the parameters in the dialog. With nothing connected to an input, the default value will be used. However, if you provide a value for any of the inputs, the corresponding field in the dialog will be filled out with this value when you press the VSD button. Presets. Most VSD plugins include a set of preset data that you can use to instantly call up collections of parameter settings. SynthMaker includes support for presets. All the standard controls, knobs, sliders, etc. already contain components for storing and preset data. To make use of this, all you need to do is add a preset manager component inside your plugin module. Use the preset manager properties to set the total number of programs, their names, and whether the preset data is to be locked or not. When presets are locked, any changes you make to them are lost when you change program. This applies to exported plugins, as well as inside SynthMaker. Timing info. Some VSD plugins depend on information that is sent from the host application, where it is being used. Typical examples are the sampling rate, tempo, and whether the host sequencer is playing. You can get access to such information using the timing info component. Note that the BPM input allows you to test BPM changes outside of the host application by providing the BPM yourself. Delay compensation. If your plugin introduces a delay into the signal processing, then you can compensate for it using the VSD delay compensation component. This allows you to pass the delay, in samples, to the host at runtime so that it can act on it. Standalone applications. In addition to VSD plugins, you can also use SynthMaker to create complete applications that will run on their own. The process for doing this is almost identical to that for exporting a VSD plugin. First, click the exe button next to VSD on the action panel of the module you want to export. You will see that there are no restrictions on inputs and outputs for exporting as a standalone application. The Create Standalone Application dialog will appear. This is very similar to the Create VSD/VSDI dialog. Application name. The application name is the name of the exe file that will be generated. By default, the software will use the module label. If there is no label, the dialog will show the last name that you used. Vendor and version. The vendor name is your name or your company name, if you want to specify one. You can also set a version number. This must be an integer value. About box message. If you want, you can specify your own message box that is displayed when selecting About from the help menu in the exported application. The space provided is equivalent to the space allocated for text on the About box dialog. Icon. You can also choose your own icon for your application. Click Change Icon and locate the icon you want using the resulting dialog box. Icons need to be stored in ICO files before they can be used by SynthMaker. If you decide you just want to use the default icon, click the Use Default button. A preview of the icon that the software will use is shown on the dialog box. Your application will be created here. Applications are created in a particular folder, and you have the option to change this. Include support for SSE and SSE2. The PC on which you generate your application may support SSE2 or it may just support SSE. When you export an application, the software saves code that is optimized for the SSE capabilities of your own PC. If you then give the application to someone whose PC has different SSE capabilities from you, the software needs to make adjustments on loading so that the application will work. These adjustments can slow down the loading process. To avoid this, you can choose to include support for all SSE setups at export time. This way, there is no reduction in loading speed when plugins are used on PCs with different SSE capabilities. Launch on completion. You can choose whether to launch the newly generated application on completion by checking this box. Click Create, and within a few seconds your application exe will be created in the target location that you specified. If you check the Launch on Completion box, the application window will appear.